Today we have a stage fashionista, Ghanaian goddess, and a neuroscientist, but not really, Dede Ayite.
Oh. Hi.
Dede, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So I understand that you studied behavioral neuroscience at Lehigh University, is that correct? Lehigh University.
Yeah.
First, what inspired you to study behavioral science? And then how did you transition into the arts?
So, the journey. I'm fascinated, I would say, by the human body and biology. And like in high school, I definitely loved like biology class. I love playing around with like dissections and taking things apart and just figuring out like what makes us all tick underneath our skin and what makes people move, what makes people like feel certain things. And so because of that, I decided to pursue a degree in behavioral neuroscience.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And how did you switch over to the arts?
Oh man, so like my first year at Lehigh, you're required to take some sort of freshman seminar. And I'd signed up for all these like bio classes and they were all full. And so by chance, they stuck me into a scenic artist or scenic painting class. And I had no idea what scene painting was. I was like, oh, I guess we'll be painting pictures of like scenes. But come to find out, it's like a scene painting class where you paint scenery for the theater. And so from there, I got introduced to Drew Francis, a professor who was a scenic professor at Lehigh. I took a lot of his classes. I had art stuff that I'd done in like high school. So even in high school, I still was taking art. Like I took AP art just for fun. I'd always be like, oh, I'll take like one art class just to bounce out my life. And then when I got to Lehigh, I was like, well, I'll just continue on that tradition. I'll take a bunch of like, you know, science classes, and then I might as well take like one art class a semester. And then landing up in the scene painting seminar, I got introduced to Drew. And then from there, he was like, well, you know, how about you take some more classes? And I was like, sure, like I'll just keep exploring that world as well. And then eventually I came to a place where I decided that I needed to make a choice, and I felt that I wanted to focus on design, at least give it a shot.
Yeah.
Oh. I find it so fascinating that like you were a science major and they were like, here's this other class that you can take that's like scenic design.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Well, because I guess as a freshman, they like, in the seminar, sort of you get stuck into whatever class might be available for, this is a prerequisite just to pass being a freshman.
Fascinating though. I just think that's so fascinating that scenic design is offered as like, I guess it's like an elective, well not an elective, but.
And it was sort of like an introduction. So we, like for that scenic painting seminar, you talk about theater, you talk about design, you come in, you paint scenery. It's sort of like, essentially it's an introduction class to theater and like scene painting. But from there, like it really sparked, I guess, I don't know, yeah.
Well, I feel like if you have an interest in like the body and how the body is constructed, it's so interesting that you were put into a class where it's literally designing the body of the stage.
That's true, yeah.
Whoa, damn.
Playwriting, metaphors.
Interview over, done.
It's a good one.
Yeah. I guess going off of that, do you feel that your science background helps you in your art?
I mean, definitely. I think like in conscious ways and unconscious ways, I think the things I studied in undergrad that deal with science or the human body and the way people think, and because I had to take a bunch of psychology classes as well, so I think that definitely all like provides some sort of like background for me and foundation for me to pull from when I'm like designing for the stage.
So I guess professionally, it seems like you've actually done a lot of costume design as opposed to scenic design in New York. And how did that come about? Were you just naturally pulled toward costume design, or did people see your work as a costume designer and just sort of funnel you in that area?
So it's interesting. I think because my way into theater or American theater was through set design, that was my primary focus. And I was also a scenic paint artist or scenic painter first. But then I've always been in love with clothes and how clothes make people feel. So even growing up in Ghana, I know I would sketch out dresses, and then I would go to the seamstress and hang out at her shop and just watch her make things and like, you know, help with that, or she'll teach me little things about how to make clothes and dresses for myself. But then moving to the U.S., my focus was like, okay, I want to do biology. I'm probably going to go to med school.
In the arts, we're all like, we're going to med school.
I know. And I still am like fascinated by biology. Like I'm still fascinated. Like I love watching like medical shows and medical histories and all that. But I realized I didn't necessarily have to become a doctor to enjoy that part of my life. I could still be an artist and still get to like either volunteer, or I can still watch shows on TV or like and be a part of that world, or still read I think magazines that deal with like the sciences. But I don't necessarily have to be a doctor to experience science.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember in my undergrad, one of the selling points for my parents, I mean, I think they already knew that I was going to be a theater person, but one of the selling points was, and I actually believe this, like being a theater artist is the best major because you get to study science, you get to study physics, philosophy. I mean, I guess physics is a science, but you know what I mean? Like you can literally do anything as a theater artist.
Definitely. Yeah. And then just back to your question about the transition, because I started as a scenic artist, was set design, but I've always been fascinated by clothes. And I think in my mind, for whatever reason, set design felt like it was my way into the theater. So that's where like that's how I got to know theater. And I was like, well, like I enjoy it. It brings me joy. I'm pretty good at it. So let me keep studying and learn this thing. Whereas like costume, will still hang around and still like partake in like costume classes, but I was like, well, set design is my thing, let me just keep down that road. So then when I went to Yale for set design, but then even then I still like knew I wanted to do costume, and I think I expressed that a lot. And in Yale too, the nice thing is you're trained to design all areas. So we still had to design costumes for class, and so that definitely helped me. And then when I graduated, I made a conscious decision to put more focus into costumes. I said, you know what, I've had the set design training, I've done and dabbled a little bit in costumes, but I really want to focus on costume design now because that's what brings me joy. When I wake up and I'm dealing with costumes and clothes and how I interact with the actors and how it brings them to life, that's where I want to be. That's where I see myself inhabiting. That's a space I see myself inhabiting. And so then I decided to pursue it more. So I still will do set design. I'm still interested in set design, but I think a huge part of me definitely loves where I'm at right now and loves the ability to create a world through clothing.
On that note, costumes, especially when you're building them from the ground up, they typically require a lot of research into the periods or the culture where it's come from. Do you ever worry about appropriation, especially when it's a culture that you're not familiar with or don't have a personal connection to?
I don't know if I've had to worry, but I do know with every show, I make sure to do my homework. It's all about and I love researching, so it's all about researching, it's all about studying, and it's also all about like having an open conversation. So if I don't know something, then it's checking with the actor who might be wearing that thing or checking with the director. It's like, I think it's everyone in the room taking ownership and responsibility of what we're gonna be putting on stage. So it's definitely like making sure to do the homework. It's definitely making sure to recognize and honor where the idea or the design element might be coming from, and then hoping that it translates in a way that is respectful, in a way that matters, and is, I think, essential to the piece. It's not just gratuitous. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, especially now when it's stuff like that is like super touchy. And as an Asian American, it's like costumes is like the part, that like touches a nerve with Asian Americans. So it's always like fascinating to like, I feel like it falls on costumes a lot most of the time. You know what I mean? Because as a player or something, it's like in the words, but like that's easy to pick up. There's like epithets, like clearly no good, or like mannerisms or whatever. But like in costumes, it's like, there's a fine line between inspiration and appropriation. So I always feel like, wow, it must be like a very difficult terrain to navigate.
I think you have to just go in not assuming you know everything, and then just like really dig deep and I mean, it's do the research, ask questions. I think like you just have to make sure you do your homework.
But I feel like that's super wise. This humility that you're bringing up, like you have to like assume that you don't know everything. And I feel like, I don't know, in New York, I feel like the stakes are so high constantly. And everyone has to be the master of knowing what they're doing with essentially other people's money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But nobody takes the time to be humble.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really fantastic. Like, I love that you said that.
So while I was doing research on it, one of the most striking designs was from a production of Marie Antoinette that you did at the Steppenwolf.
Yeah.
What was the process for that like?
Oh man.
So I guess before we go into that, what maybe describe what the design is. Hopefully we'll have images right now. Cue images, hopefully, you know?
Yes.
But yeah, describe sort of what they were and then how you went about it.
So I mean, as a production, so it's an adaptation by David Ayite, and Robert O'Hara was directing. So Robert came to me, brilliant Robert O'Hara came to me and was like, just so you know, our three leads who played Marie Antoinette and her two sort of sidekicks are African American. And that was sort of like our jumping off point, because it's like, well, we're recognizing these are people of color on stage. And so taking that it's like I had to take that and figure out, well, how would they be represented? Like, how would they, represent who they were and honor that on stage? And a lot of it came from Robert, his ideas of like, well, I want it to be modern, I want it to be high fashion, I want it to feel current. And so from there, I just did a ton of research and did lots of sketches. And I think that's the beauty too, I think, about designing, where like I might do one sketch and then I just keep going, and then until you land on the right thing, and then you're like, yes, I got it. You know what I mean? And this and I guess time back into like biology or like neuroscience, it's the same thing. It's like uncovering. I think you can't be afraid to like ask questions. You can't be afraid to keep digging. You can't, and I think that's just sort of like was the main step for me. It's just about like lots of research, lots of like, well, if I tweak this thing, how does it, if I balance out maybe like a period skirt with something that feels a little more modern, like a crop top or a top that has like some bling on it, what does that combination feel like?
Yeah. What was your research like? I mean, obviously there's the period stuff, but then what was the research you were looking for to like integrate it into a more modern sense?
I mean, because this was probably, Marie Antoinette was about 4 years ago. So I definitely looked at just what people were wearing on an everyday, and I think that had been the time where crop tops were on the rise. And a lot of sayings. So like YOLO was like one of the big sayings, so we ended up incorporating that. On Fleek, which I had just learned from a few friends, I think like a month ago, I was like, oh, like it hadn't caught on yet. And so I was like, well, let's, why don't we like throw that in there too? So I just looked at people around me. I honestly looked at what people were wearing on every day in New York City, and how hip they were, and then tried to balance that out with some of the like more traditional silhouettes.
Yeah, I guess this is where the behavioral science comes in. Yeah.
Do you feel like New York is like the tastemaker when you're doing shows like Steppenwolf or something? Like,
no, I mean, because you do have like, because of the internet and Facebook and Instagram and like YouTube, like the world is so much more like accessible to, I think, to us. So I mean, I definitely look at, when I'm sitting on the train, I stare at people sometimes. When I'm in line, like, I'm like, oh, his shoes, like, yeah. Like, so I definitely look at people in New York City, because there's a lot of like, it's a breeding ground for a lot of fascinating things. But just looking online to see what's happening in Paris, or seeing what's even happening like in South Africa, because people just interpret, I think, fashion and clothing and how they like mix all those things in an interesting way.
When I saw those designs, what immediately came to my head, I guess this is the Japanese movie coming out, but it immediately thought of the Lolita fashion in Harajuku, Japan.
Oh.
Yeah, which is like very sort of period, but it's like got a modern twist to it. And I was like, holy shit, I wonder if she thought of that.
I didn't.
Wow.
But it ties, but I mean, I think
it's not funny. I feel like if you took those designs, or at least if those actors just left the stage and then walked right into Harajuku, they would have just fit right in.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It would have been so. It's just so funny. I was like, wow, this is like really cool. It's just going off of that. What is your personal like? What is your sort of like dream process?
My dream process.
Yeah.
It all starts with the people in the room. It all starts with like your collaborators, and then like the words on page. Like, if the words ask the right questions, if they move you, if they inspire you, that's just like the right breeding ground for magic. Because then we get to I just love discovering. I love peeling back layers. I love just trying to see what are we identifying, what we are really trying to say with a production, and then just as like a collaborative group, like just experimenting and then figuring out what that means. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe this isn't a kosher question, but
if it's not, I'll just blink.
I'll
just give you a little side eye, like.
No, you don't have to answer. But what is your personal favorite project that you?
My personal favorite. Oh, I have a couple. Yeah. That's hard. They vary. I mean, Marie Antoinette was definitely a show that I think I'll always hold dear to my heart because it was a big step for me also in my design career. I think it was one of the bigger shows I'd ever designed at that stage. And
there were a lot of actors too. There were a lot of characters.
There were a lot of characters, yeah, and a lot of pieces. And the shop I was so blessed to work with the Steppenwolf costume shop, who were like amazing, and like I had such amazing artists in that room and space with me. So definitely Marie Antoinette is up there. I did a whiz with Robert at OSF, which was pretty spectacular. Schoolgirls is one I hold that dear to my heart just because I'm from Ghana, and I mean the magic on that stage was phenomenal. So I'm sure you know because you saw it, you felt it.
It's an amazing show. Question that's not on here.
Sneak attack.
Give me 3 pieces of clothing from your closet that you like, ride or die, can never live without.
Ooh,
that's my mom's a costume designer, so like I feel like I can ask this question and just pull it out.
I can't live without like, if I'm going out or just in general, like in my world.
In 3 pieces of clothing. It's like nuclear war, and they're like, oh, you can only take these 3 pieces of clothing as you're exiting the building.
All right, so I would start with, I have a necklace my dad gave to me when I turned 16, and it's a bird. So it's an African, or actually it's a Ghanaian Aden cross symbol that's Sankofa, which means like, sort of return and take it or look back. It's a bird that's sort of like looking back. So I definitely would hold on to that because I think it just holds like so much sentiment for me, and it just reminds me to remember my past to keep moving forward. So that's definitely something, and it's a gold necklace, so it's styling, like a little bit of bling. You need some bling in your life, so definitely that.
Wise words.
The other thing would be currently, I have a fabulous pair of like black pants, like black jeans that have fringe on the side.
Yes, fringe.
And it's my go-to. Like, listen, it's a party whenever I wear it because I can just be walking down the street. I'm like, I'm in my own little like club, little dance session.
I love it.
So definitely that.
Oh my gosh, you have one more. What's the last one?
Jesus Christ. The designer in me is like, wait, if I go with this, I won't have am I gonna be barefoot? But I would say like a well-tailored classic, like button-down, like white button-down shirt.
I already like this outfit. Yeah. I feel like you should wear it tomorrow.
Why didn't you come in that today?
I know, why did I? Actually, I was gonna wear that, and I was like, let's save it. We wear it too much. But yeah, no, those are the 3 things. I think
love
that
it.
necklace and a crisp, like white button-down shirt. It's well tailored.
Something would be barefoot.
I know, that's the only thing.
It's
but
okay.
Since it's not in New York City, I think like it was, I don't know, maybe.
I don't know, like
we're on a beach in.
I was gonna say like maybe on a beach, I could roll with that.
We're on a beautiful beach.
Yeah. Okay, I'm down with that.
Perfect.
That's a good question.
Thank you.
Great.
Costume designer's daughter.
Shout out to Monet's mom for that question.
Cherie, I love you. You're the best, Cherie.
Shout out to her.
She raised me, which is the best part. If you were sitting in front of a bunch of students and aspiring designers, what would your case be to pursue a career in costume design, if any?
Okay. I mean, I think for me at least, you think of the thing that speaks to your heart, the thing that you do that brings you joy. And I think that's also why I ended up in costume. It's like the thing that you wake up and you're like, you know what, I can go to sleep thinking about it. And even if it's stressful or there are moments where I feel like I'm crazy tired or I don't know what to do, there's still something deep inside of me that wants to keep pushing forward. There's still something in me that wants to keep like trying to find the answers to the questions that like whatever the problem, you know, or the story or the show might be like bringing up. So I think it's finding for yourself the one thing or the few things that keep you asking the right question, keep you engaged, keeps you intrigued, keeps you joyful. Yeah.
I love that.
It's a little moment.
Yeah. Listen up, kids. For all the
Oprah's
kids.
great.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the kids.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really fantastic. I feel like theater's so hard.
But it took me a while
That's
to
great.
get there. I mean, like, sorry, I'm able to say this now, but definitely when I started and first moved to New York City, it was rough. Because, you know, like, I sat there twiddling my hands, like, okay, who's gonna hire me? How am I gonna make this happen?
Right.
You're earning, like, no money at all. But even through that, I realized that, like, it's brought me joy. So, like, it took me, you know, like, there's fear when I started, and, like, you know, there are fearful moments. But then in hindsight, I can look back and be like, you know what, this thing has always brought me joy. This thing has always kept me moving forward. This thing always makes me want to keep like pushing forward. It makes me want to keep asking questions. It makes me keep want to just discovering. And so then it's right for me.
I love that. I think that's great.
So, anything we should look out for your work? Anything coming up?
Yes, what's happening next?
Tell the people.
So
Tell the people.
definitely come check out Children of the Lesser God. I believe we start previews March 22nd. It's a beautiful piece. I don't know if you guys know it at all, but I think it's a play that asks everyone and asks people to listen to each other. I think in this world and today, where like everyone feels so passionate about what they stand for, but but because of that, we're not listening to each other. And so it's a play that addresses that. It just asks you to listen, to really hear people, and it's a play that deals with love.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, is this on the Broadway?
God damn.
It is, right?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah, it's on Broadway.
God damn.
Yeah,
God damn.
it's my Broadway debut. So,
Whoa.
you know, thanks to a
Cheers.
lot of people.
Cheers to that.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to lift it up.
Always
Cheers to that.
lift it up. Yay.
Wow.
Broadway.
Thanks to a lot of.
That's crazy. Well,
people.
here's the thing, right? Because our show is usually only off Broadway and off Broadway. But I guess now we have a Broadway costume.
We have a Broadway star.
Wow, wow. You
Well, you get the opening.
broke our show. All right, last thing on the docket. Recommendation for the people. Tell the
What should
people.
they see?
Or anything. It can be anything you want.
Recommendations. Oh man, I think the biggest thing for me would be go out there. I think check and see when elections are happening wherever you're from.
There it is.
I
Definitely
think,
vote.
vote. Like, I mean, just do one thing that will make a difference in a positive way. I think just take ownership of that. Like, we are all responsible for whatever is happening, and I think it's on us to take the necessary steps to ensure whatever we want to see in the next few months or the next couple of years to come.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Yeah. So go vote. See when elections are happening in your,
for real.
borough, your neighborhood, or your
Absolutely.
state. But definitely, don't just be a bystander. Like, take action.
Yeah.
Compost. For the
Yeah.
love of God, compost.
Watch out for those midterms.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
Coming up. Take that Congress.
Yeah.
Fuck this guy in the White House. So.
Oh, God.
All right.
Yay!
Wow. Thank you, Dede, for coming on.
Oh,
Yes,
cheers.
cheers.
It's done,
Hopefully
but
that was okay. Hope you have enough stuff. I know it kind of like messed up in some areas,
What?
but
my
I trust
God.
you'll edit.
this is great. No,
Okay.
we're not gonna edit. We're just gonna go.
She's like.
Stop.
All right, that's good.